for me and for quite a few people who ended up being on my transsexual summer, we were found via our YouTube videos, which I think we'll get into a bit later. But it was I was on YouTube creating videos because I really felt quite alone with my situation, and I'd been trawling through so many videos myself, and I just wanted to kind of give back and also document my own personal journey. So that's how they found us, and the whole idea was to create something that had a similar feel, kind of like a group community type feel, using the retreat as that.
And do you think that was the key? Why do you think that series was so different from, or so popular, because it was watched by so many more people than other documentaries that had gone before? Really?
Well, I think there's a number of reasons I think why it was popular. One, because it was a program about trans people, but it was made by non-trans people for non-trans people. So it's kind of a way to perhaps inform the public, but at the end of the day they want ratings. So it was kind of when you've got 7 people, there's 7 really big personalities as well. Everyone is coming from a different point in life, and you put them together in a house or a retreat type aspect, you're gonna, it's more interesting than your usual documentary, which has the traditional kind of journey. You introduce the person, and they go and have surgery, and it's all about the hormones and the surgery, and not really about everyday life, I guess.
Sure. So, Paris, let me ask you, do you think it's important to engage within mainstream media?
It's so tricky because we started off Transmedia Watch being quite reactive, and so we don't like this, we want to stop this, we want to ban this. But ultimately, that's not going to change anything. And the only way really to improve transgender representation is to engage with the media, and some of that involves doing a bit of a deal with the devil, unfortunately. But I think what really worked for my transsexual summer for me was the fact that we saw happy, healthy, positive young trans people, and I think what you were saying about standard narratives is absolutely key. And I think that a lot of the time, the way I look at it now, because we've been doing a lot of work with Mermaids, which is a charity which helps trans children and their families, and I think about the mothers and fathers of trans kids who may have just come out and told their parents that they're trans at 14, 15, and if they're switching on the television and seeing some kind of, miserable middle-aged male to female transition, where there's all these problems and, breakdown in relationships and things like that, that's a valid story. But if that's the only thing that people can see, they're going to look at that and think, I don't want that for my child. That looks like a horrible life. And you look at Fox and the people in my transsexual summer, and it's like, no, actually, your life could be good. You could be a valid human being.
I never did YouTube. It's kind of like, I would have done had I transitioned now. I know that I would have been all in that, whereas, I don't know, I feel like I have tried to watch these things. I have looked.
That's a painful.
No, it sometimes is, actually. I sometimes find it quite painful. I have tried to look at them.
What's so painful about it?
Because I feel sort of like ancient watching children talk about their problems. I'm thinking, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Why am I, it doesn't feel like it's for me.
But there are older trans people talking about different issues who've stayed with YouTube. It's not always such a transient space. I think there definitely can be a sense of transience in the trans community anyway, in the sense that people will often, once they've gone through transition, they might leave the support groups, they might leave YouTube, they might, and just embark on this life, whether it be stealth or not, to whatever degree. But there are now, the way things are changing and progressing, and people's sense of strength within the community, people are staying at it, and you get much more of an existential kind of response, which I think you could give if you made some videos for it.
What I'm curious though is because one of the things that you'd mentioned before, and I'm really curious because you've done this, haven't you, Paris? This is your.
Yeah, I've done that. Oh, yeah, I'm all over that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm really curious because the thing about safety, which kind of came up in Phoebe's film, the idea of like how much you put yourself out there. Right. I can see, I thought, yeah, actually, although you're putting stuff out into the internet, your parents and their friends aren't mine aren't going to see it. So you've got, so for me, I'd have a certain safety there. It's like a kind of within Because it feels to me like a very public thing that you're throwing yourself open, but you're not in a way. Can you tell me a bit about how that feels? Because
It's there if you want to find it, you know, and people searching for these types of videos that they're generally, I mean, sometimes it's 1%, you know, people who have issues with it who kind of seek it out just to throw abuse at you, but 99% is, you know, you find it's community. And do you find the same thing? Or?
Yeah, I have a few thoughts on this. For me, I was in a really dark place a few years ago, and I was very isolated, as many trans people are actually. And, you know, I kind of desperately Googled transsexual, transgender, and found these videos on YouTube. And I honestly think that I'd have killed myself if it hadn't have been for finding people and seeing that there were people all across the world, you know, sitting in their kitchens or their bedrooms, you know, going through exactly the same thing that I'm going for. And that was really powerful, and actually choosing to kind of put myself out there, because I wanted to give something back, actually. It was kind of like, oh, you know, because I was kind of semi-stealth at the time. And I was expecting there to be people going, you know, tranny and all that kind of stuff. And actually, touch wood, there hasn't been really, you know, you get the odd one or two comments, so it's a weird kind of space to
Absolutely.
enter, you know?
I mean, I had a similar experience in that when I joined YouTube, I did it because I felt so isolated. I didn't feel I had a community, and you know, I did it through search terms and things like that, and I found it, and I was very scared when I made my first videos some years ago, and but yeah, there's this fear. It's like, oh my gosh, I put this out there, people I don't know are commenting and saying things, and then you discover that it's community. And it's like going into any new space, but it's not. It does feel quite safe in some ways, and I know that that's perhaps a false sense of security. But there isn't the people. If people get attacked on YouTube, trans people get attacked, you get a mass of comments. People come in. The trans community really support you, don't they?
Yeah,
massively.
You're actually more likely to find transphobic, racist, homophobic comments on the latest, you know, Gaga video or something, you know, than Transition Diaries.
Well, for me, one of the things about sort of transness is I like to think that because it's self-defining, that anyone can opt in and anyone can opt out. And so that if somebody, I mean, there have been times in my life that I've opted out and I kind of haven't done trans things and I haven't been to trans things, and, you know, I've gone to work and done boring things instead. But I like that option. I think that we have the option that we're not forced to go to film festivals if we don't want to anymore. But yeah, I think if somebody has sort of transitioned and is stealth.
I suppose there's something about feeling like welcome to people who do leave our communities and our support groups, that they can come back and find something for themselves.
I remember what I was going to say, when you're talking about education and how when we're seen in the mainstream media, it's about trying to educate these people, and we're kind of, it's almost like a kind of millstone around our necks and slows everything down. You can't be creative. But honestly, a lot of films come out here, you know, we see them at film festivals all the time, and they're letting the audience catch on. They're not mollycoddling the audience, so why do they think that if you're trans, you have to be so careful with the audience? They'll get it, because like with that film that you showed me today, All Kids, whoever saw that film was going to get a universal story for it, because we do have those stories. You don't have to be mollycoddled and educated. We can just be out there and creative. Yeah, absolutely.
But then within the what I think about the film festival, this film festival, any film festival, is within that environment. I like to think of it as it's a safe space for us, for queers and trans people. That you can come to. I mean, for instance, one of the films we're showing is Sexing the Trans Man, which is Buck Angel's documentary. And I think, I'm not sure that I want that on television. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. No, I don't think they could show it on TV.
Because it would give the wrong kind of
I don't know, it's not that. I'm just imagining my mum seeing it, and it's like, for me, that's a film that's a film to watch for us. It's kind of like, it's a film for us to be. I want to be amongst my people.
I take exception to that, actually.
Yeah.
I don't think that we should have films for us, and I think that with the YouTube stuff, that's really great, and obviously it's very important, you know, as Valentina and I can attest to. But I think that it shouldn't be just like, oh, you know, we can do this and we can have a voice if we do this kind of thing. You know, we should be getting in those mainstream spaces more often, because that's what's really going to move the game along. And a lot of trans people who struggle with their transitions, what are you actually struggling with? And it's other people's reactions.
Right.
And the way to change that is by doing more kind of my transsexual summer stuff, really. So I don't like this stuff for us and this inward looking stuff.
I still hope.
I think it's just who I want to watch porn with.
Oh yeah, maybe not your mum.
Fox.
I'm just maybe in 5 years' time when we have another review. When
Yeah.
will it be 5
Will we
years?
still be
or-
here in 5
I
years?
hope so,
Yeah.
yeah. I hope that my transsexual summer looks really dated. You know, I
Yeah.
hope that people have
Oh, it
moved on
looks
from that
a
point.
bit dated.
Yeah.
You know, I was in Dublin a few weeks ago, and I was in the hairdressers, getting my hair done as you do, and I was reading through one of those awful magazines like Closer or Now or something, and it was about a mother who had supported her child's transition. It was kind of like, you know, she took the shocking decision to let her son live as her daughter kind of thing, and it was really kind of bad. And I think that a lot of the people, I'm going to have to be really careful how I word this, a lot of the people who end up in those kind of things maybe are not as aware of their rights or as political, and don't realise that they can insist on things being told a certain way. But, you know, you can be in those kind of publications so long as you're kind of very clear, this is what I will and this is what I won't do. And in some cases, you know, you can ask them to agree to full copy approval. A lot of places will say no to that, but then you could just say no to them. And it's really frustrating sometimes to see people feeding the lions, you know. But I don't really know how we can get around that. And actually, as a final kind of point off the back of that, some of the stuff that we see which might make us cringe, we think, oh God, you know, not another bloody, look, there's a trans person story. Can actually be quite positive in the sense that, you know, we exist and it's creating a dialogue, and it may not be the dialogue that we want, but a dialogue's there. And I know that a lot of mums have been in contact with mermaids after seeing Jackie Green, who's gone in for this Miss World thing. And, you know, Miss World, I wouldn't really say that would be a great thing to push a young woman, let alone a young trans woman, into. And there's been a few son stories, you know, it's kind of like my daughter became my son or whatever, blah, 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 which made me cringe a little bit. But actually, other mums have looked at that and realised, oh, actually, you know, there are trans kids out there and I'm not alone. So it's not always as bad as it might look once we've deconstructed it, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful, because I think a reference point is a reference point, isn't it? When there aren't that many, I suppose, and there's something to think.
Unless every single article is kind of shock horror and you know, really
Well, I think
negative.
you said once it's okay to have that, but then we also need, you know, the news presenters who just happen to be trans, and we need to have that variety of
It's a
representation.
balance, absolutely.
This is it. It's the fact that you know, there's bad representations of women in the media, you know,
Right.
but we also have, you know, women newsreaders and stuff, and it's kind of like, it wouldn't be so bad if we was watching a really cliched, stereotyped kind of documentary on ITV if you could flick over, you know, and there was a trans person who's just doing something incidental, or who was on Ready Steady Cook or something, and you just kind of don't see that. So I think that it's a case of saying, and I think we're hearing more and more of this, and we're using different means to get there, but trans people are finally starting to say, hello, we're here, we exist, and actually that's not right, and we're going to start telling our own stories from now on. So maybe if you start off with the we're here, and then we can move on from that.